Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, and we're moving on with the next witnesses of the Casey Anthony trial, and next up is Stephen Shaw. Now, these are my least favourite testimonies. Hair. I don't see the point to it if it can't be used in any way. All they can say is it excludes, or they can't exclude. No, it's not. I don't like it. So, Stephen Shaw is a hair and fibre examiner for the FBI. He was asked to examine a hair in the case. His job was to examine the hair and see if he reached the same conclusion of the previous analyst, which was Karen Korsberg-Lowe. It was to confirm if there was apparent decomposition and also to confirm any similarities to the hair from the hairbrush, and he reached the same conclusion. Later on in this case, he was asked to examine more evidence as Karen was not available at the time. He was asked to examine the hair mass, which I'm presuming is the hair mat. He examined the hairs under a microscope and then compared those hairs to the hair from the trunk of the car. He found apparent decomposition on the hair mass, but it was at a later stage of decomp than was seen on the hair that Karen had examined from the trunk. They were also consistent with each other, and he again points out that the hair analysis cannot identify a person. They're now going through a test study that Stephen had done on hairs from living people, where he'd left them in certain conditions, in certain places. So yeah, that takes up a good chunk of the rest of the testimony. A quick cross-examination. Basically, post-mortem root banding in a hair does not mean the person it came from is dead. So that to me just makes that whole thing just pointless. So we move on to Elizabeth Fontaine. She works for the FBI as a latent print examiner. Now this I find interesting, especially because she goes through each process she does, and because I was an avid watcher of CSI, hearing her explain what she does and seeing it on CSI kind of makes all that come together. I know I sound a bit geeky, but yeah, I enjoyed this testimony. So, in December 2008, she was sent evidence for the case. The duct tape that was from the remains. It was 3 pieces in total. When she first received the tape, one of the pieces was on its own and the other 2 were stuck on top of each other. Those 2 pieces were eventually unstuck from each other, but Elizabeth examined them together and then when they had been pulled apart. Each piece was 6 to 8 inches in length, and the glue was almost gone and the tape was no longer sticky, which had been said previously. The glue, she said, had migrated to the end of one of the pieces, making a glob of glue at the end. Because of where the duct tape was found, she didn't expect to find prints, but she can't really go into that process thinking that she's got a job to do. So to start off with, there were no fingerprints found on the pieces, but on one of the pieces she saw an outline of a heart on the corner edge, and when she saw this, she was using an alternative light source when she saw this, which was called RUVIS. RUVIS stands for Reflective Ultraviolet Imaging Systems. She says the heart was approximately the size of a dime. When she originally saw it, she didn't think it was of any great significance to the case, but she did take note of it and notified who she needed to. She didn't photograph it because it was her job to look for prints. So again, she took note of it and carried on with her examination. The FBI does not require photographs of unexpected items to be done. So she was there looking for prints. It wasn't because this unexpected item of a heart showed up, she couldn't change the direction of her examination. She had to carry on. So when she did finish the examination for Prince, Elizabeth did try to photograph the heart, but it was no longer visible, which is really frustrating. And because throughout her process she had used dye on the tape, black powder and alternate black powder, which is the normal black powder mixed with a solution. So after all these processes, she couldn't find the heart, so she cannot say what it was. So we move on to the cross-examination, and for this, thank you Jose Baez, because this is where she explains everything, which I really enjoyed. So firstly, she conducts a visual examination of the evidence to see if any prints are visible before she begins to use any chemicals. She then uses a laser which allows her to potentially identify prints, specifically any naturally fluorescing fingerprints, which would be due to people using hand lotions or items that they have handled. Next is the UV light. As with laser, there is a certain frequency used. The laser and UV light use different frequencies to allow for anything missed previously. After that, the items were sent back to Trace for them to do what they needed to do, and once they had done that, they went back to her. Elizabeth then redid the first 3 steps she's just spoken about, and that is because the 2 pieces that were stuck together had now been separated. She then used superglue fumes on the pieces of tape. So she explains that superglue is attracted to moisture, so the superglue is put in a humidity chamber. The moisture is attracted to any latent fingerprints, so the superglue is attracted to the moisture on the fingerprints. So if there's any there, they will show up during this process. So after the superglue is the Ruvis light, then the alternate dye, which is called RAM, which is a dye stain that is used specifically on top of superglue. And then lastly is the alternate black powder, which is painted onto any glue or sticky substance that may be on the item. This alternate black powder is only ever used when there is a glue type substance. And then finally the traditional black powder, which adheres to moisture of any latent print like the oil and sweat of a print. So you push your finger down, there's going to be a print there due to the oil and moisture. So apart from the alternate black powder, all of the above processes were used on both sides of the tape. She says it was the Ruvis light that picked up the heart. Again, no fingerprints were found on any pieces of the tape. Frustrating. See, I'm getting further and further on in this case, and I'm starting to see why she was found not guilty. I don't even know what to say. Right, I'll be back with my next video. So until then, bye for now.